And that Premier League game at the London Stadium finished a West Ham United 1, Tottenham Hotspur 1 in a game where West Ham were behind to a very, very early goal. That may well prove to be a very good point for West Ham, but I have to say that was it was a bit of a boring game, truth be known. If you'd have just tuned in to the last, so I don't know, 60 seconds of that game, you might have been fooled by thinking, wow, this is a humdinger. This is a really, really good game. It wasn't a good game. And I actually think that was probably a tactical victory for David Moyes. Truth be known, I really do. I think it was a tactical victory for Moyes there. What can I say? A very, very early goal. We went behind after 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. Tottenham had posed West Ham all sorts of problems. And I was certainly a little bit concerned over Vladimir Coufal after the first game. The game against Newcastle a couple of days ago on Saturday. I had good reason to be worried. It has to be said. He's not in good form at the moment. And he got drawn completely and utterly out of position. It wasn't just him, to be fair. I think the midfielder easily strolled past, actually. I'll get to the midfield. The midfield wasn't great today, but it definitely functioned in some way, shape or form, because I don't believe that Fabianski had an awful lot to do. But Vladimir Coufal got caught ball watching, basically, and he completely lost his man, Timo Werner. And it was actually during their goal, there was 2 of our players that lost their men. By the time that Vladimir Coufal realised that Timo Werner had it, he was too far away. He'd advanced into our box and he flashed the ball sort of across goal in that sort of no man's land between the centre-backs and the goalkeeper. But what had actually happened was Brennan Johnson had made a run and he was completely missed by Emerson to such an extent. Emerson looked for him and actually turned to look for him, but he was gone. He was gone that side. And it wasn't very good at all, has to be said. So both fullbacks at fault, certainly, for Tottenham's first goal. But Tottenham were flooding midfield, and they really were. So they were flooding midfield. They had their fullbacks in midfield, basically, as well. West Ham were completely and utterly overrun. But somehow we managed to do a lot of blocks. We managed to it was a weird one, really. Just not many saves, I think, from Fabianski at all. And Zouma had a really, really good game, by the way, and so did Mavropanos. I think, they played really well today, it has to be said. But we had no control of that midfield at any point at all. And I don't want to overly criticise James Ward-Prowse because he put in such a massive shift. I don't know where you go and check the measurements for miles run or whatever, but Ward-Prowse probably covered more ground than any other West Ham player today. That being said, with the ball, I thought he was absolutely horrific. But I don't want to overly criticise him because I think he put in a real shift. But our midfield, and when I say our midfield, I mean in terms of Thomas Souček and James Ward-Prowse, were outnumbered and outclassed in that game. And for that reason, Lucas Paquetá had to sit very deep just to help out. And you know what? I mean, they're a good team, Tottenham. He's got some good tactics, Ange Postecoglou. He really, really has. And it more than anything else, I think Moyes, or certainly Lucas Paquetá, had to do stuff just to keep them out and to keep them at bay. I'm sort of mindful of the chat. By the way, I don't want to sound overly critical. I think this may well turn out to be a good point for West Ham, but it was a boring game and it wasn't enjoyable to watch. And I'm just trying to sort of view things as I thought they unfolded. But Moyes will be pleased with that because a stat flashed up at the end when Ward-Prowse was going to take a corner near the end, and it was I think West Ham. The stat on the screen certainly said West Ham had 9 corners to Tottenham's 4. And it seemed like that. I don't think we attacked loads more than them. But in terms of our counter-attack, particularly in the first half, it was there. There was a threat there. We drew it back, got back to 1-1. A goal from Kurt Zouma, a really good corner from Jared Bowen, actually. Bowen swung the ball over. Zouma did try to head it. And it sort of ricocheted off his back. off his head, off his back, and it went in. It wasn't a fluke goal because he was trying to head it in. And I do, if this makes any sense, it deflected on his back in the direction that he was heading it. So I'll absolutely take that as a West Ham goal, and it was a West Ham goal, and that was 1-1. And realistically, that was about it for the game. I'm not going to finish the video now. There's other stuff to say, and particularly to talk about some individual performances in it. Because by the 60-minute mark, West Ham had backed off completely. And we sat back, and at that point, we were going to take the point. And I think there were two reasons for that, really. I think tactically, David Moyes had sorted out the conundrum with Tottenham overloading in midfield with their fullbacks. It basically sorted it out, and it stopped hurting us. And I think probably Moyes was too frightened to then do another twist and make an attacking substitution. So what happened thereafter was pretty much everyone was defending. We got deeper and deeper and deeper. Almost the rest of the game played out in West Ham's half. There was one point where we managed to sort of clear the ball, and it went to Antonio, and he wasn't even in the centre circle. He was closer to the centre circle than our goal, but he tried to flick it on. There was no one there. He was the furthest man forward. And I think Antonio, Bowen, and Kudus had put in such a shift. Everyone ran around a lot today, by the way. They put in such a shift that come the 75th minute mark, they were all knackered. There was... I'm not going to say there was no counter-attack, but they were very, very infrequent because they were just out on their feet. And as I'm sure you know, if you're reading the chat, and if you haven't seen the game, West Ham made no substitutions. And for me, I think it was a bit of a shame. I'm a bit mindful that I do criticise David Moyes an awful lot. And I'm sort of mindful about criticising him too much again, because I do think for what he wanted, he got his tactics right there. I do. I think by and large, by the end, he'd shut Tottenham down. And that's probably what he wanted to do. Unfortunately, in shutting Tottenham down, he also shut West Ham down. And that being said, we had a little counter-attack at the end. But I think you're always going to be able to score against Tottenham. I think they have they play a high line, and they're always going to have an opportunity where other teams can score against them. I mean, I think we're 3 points behind Man United now with, I think they got 2 games in hand. But, Frank, I can read your message. I'll get to the Antonio miss in a bit. I think it might go down to 8th, European football. If it does, we may well qualify for Europe again. But it was frustrating. As a fan, it was frustrating to watch. But I can't be massively annoyed about it. I think I was just a little bit frustrated with no substitutions, that we didn't actually really go for it. But Moyes will look at that and he'll think, well, hold on a second. We got 9 corners to their 4, and we had a chance to win it at the end. Frank, what is Frank alluding to is that we had a counter-attack. Mikel Antonio had a really good chance. He got one-on-one with the keeper and he fluffed his lines. But we were knackered. He was knackered by that point. He really, really was. And I think this is where we suddenly see the folly of deciding to have a small squad. I just don't. I think there's times when it doesn't work. But there was one thing that I did find really, really frustrating, actually. Well, there were 2 things. I think the first thing was, I don't want to overly criticise Souček and Ward-Prowse. I just thought they worked so hard. But when you have players like that, and Soufal, and Zouma, and by the way, Zouma's my man of the match today. Let me just get that right. I don't want to, if it sounds like I'm going to be harsh on him, I'm not. There wasn't enough technique in the team. So we lacked the necessary technique to really pick out those counter attacks as well as we might have done. I think you can sit back. But Alvarez is a massive part of our team, and that's 2 games down now without Alvarez, 1 to go against Leverkusen, and we'll certainly welcome him back to the team for Wolves. He is a miss. He's a massive miss, and it just does. It no part does Souček and Ward-Prowse work. It really doesn't. But as I say, they really worked. They worked their asses off. They really did. There was one thing the other thing that really frustrated me massively, and I don't know if you thought this as well. In the 92nd minute, we were attacking. And it wasn't a counter-attack. We'd got up there. We'd had a throw-in. We'd advanced almost. We'd pushed up. We had lots of players in their half because we just had a corner. We had lots of players in their half as well. Soufal got the ball and he passed it back. A long way to the goalkeeper. We were near their goal and he must have passed it back 60 yards to Fabianski. And what it was a microcosm of our ambition at that point. Everyone was there. Bowen was there. Kudus at this point was playing more central. Antonio was in the box. We had the big guys up, and I just couldn't believe it. We on 92nd minute, go back and you'll see he passed it back, and I just thought it killed it. Honestly, I apart from the goal, when we scored the goal, it was probably the most I shouted all game was in that 92nd minute. What are you doing? What are you doing? Put the ball in there. Give us a chance. We did almost win it at the end. There was a little scramble near the end, and we could have won it. We really could have done. And actually, for all the things I said, we were okay. I didn't think we were that bad at all. I think getting a draw against Tottenham is probably not too bad. And if we get 8th and we get European football, this will be a good point. But it is frustrating to watch. And it's not what happened in this game that was concerning me when I was watching it. It's the impact that no substitutes might have further down the line. Because I think Tottenham made 5. If they didn't, they made 4. They made a lot. They made a lot of substitutions. And when we've got these games coming thick and fast, so obviously we play again at the weekend, and then we play again on Thursday. And I find it a little bit odd, actually, that we've decided not to go and get more players in January. Because David Moyes clearly doesn't want to use his substitutes. Yes, you probably noticed if you watched the game, there was a point where Danny Ings got warmed up. Now, Danny Ings would not have been my choice, but at least I thought, okay, it's somebody. He's putting on a striker who's trying to win the game. He got him warmed up. And then we had a corner. And then he told him to sit down. So I guess Moyes thought, well, hold on a second. We're still technically getting into their half. I won't bother with Ings. And I do hope we don't get to a situation that happens in that Frankfurt season where everyone's just knackered. You know, you get midway through April, and from April and May, you know, everyone's knackered. But anyway, I'm probably sounding a little bit too negative there. I do think, make no mistake about it, Tottenham will be gutted about that. And Tottenham will not think that they played well. Tottenham fans will not think that was a good Tottenham performance. But whilst we were maybe, you know, when it got to 60 minutes, we were negative. I guess I can't have it both ways. I did complain against Newcastle that David Moyes' tactics were to sit back and they didn't work. Well, his tactics in this game were to sit back and they did work. So, you know, I guess I can't have it both ways. And Tottenham will be more annoyed than we are, I think, on this today. But we got to capitalise on this now. I think this only becomes a good point if we now go and beat Wolves. And I think we have to. Because we're sort of hanging in there by the seat of our pants at the moment, aren't we? In the Premier League, it would be hard to suggest we're in good form. But you know, I guess, you know, the last 3 league games is a draw, a loss, and a draw. That ain't good form, is it? You know, 2 wins and a draw is good form. So we need to pick it up. So to make this draw look good, we've got to go and beat Wolves. And I just hope the players are not too knackered by then. What I would like to say about Vladimir Soufal is, whilst I was frustrated with him at the end for passing it back when we were attacking in the 92nd minute, for passing it back to Fabianski, I'm very annoyed about it. I do think he rallied well. Bearing in mind, I thought he had a nightmare against Newcastle. I thought he had a nightmare start to this game. And I do think he rallied well. Apart from that bit at the end, he made a really important clearance. He made some good tackles. And he doesn't hide. That's one thing about Soufal. He does not hide. He's up for the challenge. Alvarez back which is important for the next game. Moyes going to have to wrap these players in cotton wool, and what's it, Tuesday? He needs to give them. He needs to get them in tomorrow. Give them the massage, not Moyes himself. Get them the ice bath, and possibly even give them Friday off and get them back in for training Saturday. Give them Thursday off and get them back in for training on Friday. He's going to need to wrap them in cotton wool. It really is. But look, ultimately, good point. Crap game. But I think when I look back, bearing in mind we had a substitute goalkeeper today because our first choice goalkeeper was injured, Fabianski did not have much to do. And Tottenham will score a lot of goals against a lot of teams. And they struggled against us today. They struggled against us. And for that, I guess I should be grateful. There you go. I'll just finish with this comment here from a Metaversal Threat, which I do agree with this. I think Wolves is a must-win if we have serious ambitions of qualifying for Europe again. It's a hell of a risk to go out of January and go into a European campaign with the smallest squad. And David Moyes has used the least players in the Premier League out of any team. It's a risk. You're gambling that no one gets injured. To do that and then not make substitutes is a really, really big risk. I mean, he is playing Russian roulette here. But if he's going to do it, Wolves is a must-win. Anyway, there you go. That's West Ham 1, Tottenham 1. We're still in it. We're still in with a fighting chance. And, whilst it was frustrating, no substitutes, it was, I guess, in David Moyes' mind, get a draw against that team, and it is a good team, Postecoglou's team. It will be a job done. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I was going to say enjoy the rest of your evening. Evening's over. Good night and all the rest of it. Please do stick a thumbs up on the video. Click subscribe if you've not done so already. Click the bell, like and share and all that other stuff that everybody asks you to do. We will be back. Myself and Gia will be back on Patreon over the next couple of days, obviously with our player ratings and all the videos. So Gia will be back later on the forum channel because he's been to the game today. It's so late. We'll probably upload it in the morning when people need to get to bed, don't they? I certainly do. Catch up with you later. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.